Mics are on.
Welcome. My name is Peter de Bakker, and I'm the chairman of the Harwich Wastewater Implementation Committee. This is our third cable segment to help educate the town's voters about the town meeting articles on the wastewater program. 10 years' worth of effort have gone into developing this program, which is specific to Harwich. The plan was approved by the state and county in 2016, and we now need to move forward with the implementation. This plan, by the way, is now approved, and this is it. This third segment is intended to explain what the recommended waste program will cost. Several information brochures have been prepared to help present this information, and they are posted on the town's website, along with a wastewater calculator to determine the tax impact to you. We encourage you to visit that site or pick up one of the brochures at Town Hall, the Community Center, Brooks Library, or other locations around town. It's a complicated issue, and I've asked Selectman Peter Hughes and Town Administrator Christopher Clark to help us explain the cost impact of the wastewater program. Peter, I think, do you want to take the lead on this?
Thank you. I'll start, certainly. So Peter and Chris, as we know, as we go through all the technical aspects of wastewater and wastewater treatment and whatnot, what it really comes down to, what people are asking us is, what does this mean to me? And that doesn't necessarily mean what does it mean physically to you, what does it mean economically to me? I think we've gone through a pretty good effort at explaining why we need to do this program, but people keep asking, tell me what it means to me. In the town of Harwich, and Chris will explain this in a few minutes, as part of the overall program, we intend to use real estate taxes as the major method of funding the capital aspects of these systems that we put in place, the sewer system. But for the individual homeowner in Harwich, about 50% of the properties will eventually be sewered, and the rest won't. So people ask us, well, why can't I do something at my own house to improve the situation on nitrogen? The fact remains that if you do nitrogen treatment or try and reduce nitrogen, the most effective way of doing it is by a central facility. The bigger the plant, the more effective it is at dealing with the nitrogen. If, for instance, we elected not to go this way, we could end up with enhancements of Title V septic systems, which could cost between $15,000 to $20,000 or $25,000 per unit per homeowner, but would have to do a lot of them, a lot more than we would have to sewer, because it's not as effective at solving the nitrogen problem. So we've done some information, or put some information together, done some analyses. This is a 2-page handout that we have that will be available throughout town, certainly at Town Hall, at the library, and a number of places around town. But if you have an existing Title V septic system and you run through the numbers, as we have, and that includes properly maintaining your system, it costs you about $1,335 a year, including, by the way, an item that Chris will talk about, and that is the tax rate increase associated with doing this next phase of the wastewater treatment plan. That is sewering, designing the sewer system, if you will, and doing the IMA with Chatham in the East Harwich area. So $1,335. It also assumes that you have a replacement cost every 25 years that would be $15,000. Now, if you look at what it takes to upgrade your system, so that you put in this, what I call this magic chamber, which would be between your existing septic tank and the leaching field today, your total cost on an annual basis, assuming you borrowed the money to do the upgrades, would be about $4,500. That's quite a difference. That's about $3,200 difference every year to go that way. So we certainly believe that doing central sewer collection, if you will, and treatment is the way to go. So that's what I would point to at the moment. Look at that cost difference. It makes economic sense. Nobody likes that we have to bite the bullet, that we're all going to have to pay somewhere between $150 in our taxes every year on a $350,000 house, and eventually $400,000 a year to do the full program. But that is much better, in our opinion, than going to individual Title V enhancements and solving the problem that way. So with that, I'd turn it over to you.
Peter, I think we've done this sort of before, right? The numbers are in front of us in terms of time frame, amounts of money for the entire program. I think it's a 40-year program. The program costs are in the order of $230 million.
Yes.
We've done a similar program before, have we not?
It's called your water system in Harwich.
Right.
And that was a rollout over about 40 years. Remember, we all used to be on individual wells. It's probably before most of our times in the town of Harwich, but we all lived on individual wells. It was determined that wasn't an effective way to go anymore, so we rolled out a plan to have a municipal water system. So it's very much like that, but still, when you show up with a number,
Yeah.
it's a big number.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
But we have managed to survive it. And
We have
we've
managed to
benefited
survive
from
it, and I think in the end, you know, if our intent and we want to be good neighbors to our water resources, we have to do this.
Great. Chris, could you tell us a bit about the details of how we're going to finance this?
Sure. One of the things I think it's important, as Peter alluded to, we've already done the water system. The water system was a multi-million dollar, actually over $200 million program. How do you take and address an issue like we have confronting us? And when you look at the number of $220 million, what you want to do is really look at it. It's broken into 8 phases, so it's over time. We can also borrow money for up to 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of looking at this as a kind of like a school project, if you would, one big project that has to be done and has to be finished, because it's 8 phases over a period of 40 years, you have basically a 70-year time horizon in which to look at that. When you do that, that gives you the ability to kind of blend in and address some of the rates. So what the plan calls for is similar to the water department, where that was done over a period of time. We're doing this over a period of time. Our timing is pretty good too, because with the Monomoy system being started to be paid off, we'll be introducing new debt. So the taxpayer in their actual tax bill, as debt falls off, debt will be brought back in. What we've been able to do too is we will be using the state revolving loan fund, which we won't have to go out to the traditional market. So instead of financing something at 4 or 4.5%, we have the ability to fund it at 2 to 2.5. That will help to be able to mitigate. What that means is, I think Peter alluded to, we have the calculator on the website. You could look at it, but in our initial assessment, the average assessed value of a home in Harwich is $350,000. And when you look over that 70-year time horizon, it's about $400 per year is what the average homeowner would be paying. I think it's important, and Peter alluded to this, in that calculator we do look at some of the beginning stages, and really the first couple stages for this year and next year is really the design of the system in East Harwich, which is about just over $2 million, and then the IMA with Chatham, which is about $6.7 million. So we're looking at approximately about $9 million in costs to be added on for this town meeting, and then also Colebrook, which is an additional $2 million, so 11 million in total. So that 11 million will be financed over a period of time. So it's the ability to break the project up into pieces that gives us the best means to kind of moderate the cost. One thing too, just in terms of cost, the decision was made by the board and by administration that with the ability to do it as a tax obligation, it's now tax deductible to the residents. If we were to do it as a betterment process, number one, we would only be bettering about 40% of the population, so not everybody, although everyone adds to the issue, not everyone would be paying for it with a betterment. So by doing as part of the taxes, we get to have it over a larger body of people. Every taxpayer in Harwich will contribute, and every taxpayer in Harwich will have the opportunity to take a tax deduction in doing it. So I think from a finance perspective, by blending it over time and making it tax deductible, I think this should be as affordable as we're going to make $220 million be over that period of time.
I think an important issue is that people don't fully appreciate and realize that having a Title V system has a lot of costs associated that people don't necessarily want to recognize as being part of their expense, right?
Yeah, I think what happens is, you know, it's like a lot of things in our houses, we don't deal with them until it's a problem.
Right.
If you do the proper maintenance, you know, as prescribed, and get your system pumped out, for instance, every 3 years, that type of thing, then you keep up with it. But a lot of people just ignore it, and they pay the consequences in the end.
Right. It's a bit like home ownership, where people say you buy the home, but anticipate to spend about 1% of your home value
Right.
annually.
Right.
And people don't want to recognize it, but it is a fact in the final analysis.
Absolutely. Could we circle
Absolutely.
back on just one item, and that is, I talked about two things associated with a homeowner, one being an enhanced system in today's Title V. We didn't talk yet about what does it mean when I connect to the sewer system. If the sewer line goes by your house, you'll be connecting to the sewer system. Now, some of the unknowns are how old is your existing Title V system, but let's be clear, when you connect to the sewer system, you will be abandoning, a contractor will be abandoning your existing Title V septic system. There will be about a 6-inch pipe that runs up to your house from the street, and you connect in. The cost of doing that look like they're about $7,000 on average. And then there's a user cost based on your water usage. Water in equals water out typically, except for irrigation, about $510 a year. When you rack up the cost of being on the sewer system come out to be, ironically, $1,335 per year as an estimate, versus the same cost on an existing Title V septic system. That also includes the fact we're all paying this $150 initially increase in taxes, so there's no free lunch. But I just wanted to point that out. There is a cost, obviously, associated in making that connection to the sewer.
Yeah. And so for viewers to also appreciate is the following, that of course the Board of Health and entities like that will be heavily involved in the formulation of how things will be implemented from that perspective. And I think in the course of the development of this program, I think we can say that we have interacted with all boards, committees, to make sure that once we reach this point here, we have everybody together. Anything else we'd like to add?
Well, if
to
we have
this?
some time, we could just mention the intermunicipal agreement with Chatham. Chatham has excess capacity at their 1.3 million gallon per day plant, which is in Chatham. Our intent is to buy into that, 300,000 gallons per day. The selectmen spent with the subcommittee negotiating for about 20 months with the Chatham Board of Selectmen subcommittee and some of their experts and ours, and came to an agreement. The capital payment would be $6.765 million. That would be paid out in 4 payments. The initial one being, assuming this plan is approved and funded at this town meeting, we'll make that payment in July and get started. We think it's a fair deal. Our estimates to build a plant, 300,000 gallon per day capacity in East Harwich would be between $12 and $15 million, and try and site it. We know siting just from a couple of years ago, trying to find some land for recharge is an issue. So we think it's a very fair deal, particularly for the town of Harwich. It allows us to take the first step, not a baby step because we're talking about a lot of money, but a step towards being in the sewer business.
Great. Thank you very much. I think I presume this covers just about all the major aspects. We could go on for a long time, but if you have more questions, you can certainly call Town Hall. Depending on your question, the Town Administrator's Office can certainly refer you to the right person to answer your questions. Thank you very much.